of going to go with the flow. Okay, and that affects how your country, or how you respond to foreign policy as well. You guys with me so far? Yeah. All right, so let's see what else we got here. And then finally, in terms of you know, this is actually what I just, a lot of what I've just said, kind of compared versus the different models that I talked about in the rational process. Accurate, comprehensive information, distorted, incomplete information, right? Bounded versus unbounded versus bounded. Clearly defined national interest. Again, this is all basically unbounded versus bounded. And when we talk about unbounded, we talk about unbounded on the individual level. We talk about bound on a group level, whether organizations within the foreign policy making network or nation states, and then we talk about essentially on a regional level, which is what I tried to kind of emphasize there. And so these are all kind of essentially comparing and contrasting unbounded versus bounded. Okay, which kind of lets me go into chapter 9, which is the last chapter before the exam, and we're going to talk about alliances. Now, one of the things that you are going to be asked to do in the exam, the second test, the game, is you got to forge alliances. So Kuwait's got to enter, it may have to contact Bahrain, okay? Or any country that they are more likely to do what? To talk to, okay? Why? Well, because it's in their interest. It's in your interest to do that. Now, so when we talk about alliances, typically is when two or more countries, okay, enter into an agreement together. That is they enter into an agreement, they sign a treaty, the formal agreement, which that basically where they agree to coordinate their behavior. And again, I introduced the word deterrence. I introduced the word deterrence in the earlier today, and that is it increases deterrence. Why? Why does it increase deterrence? Well, why would two countries enter into some sort of alliance? Well, because it makes them more powerful, and by being more powerful, they are going to be more respected. Okay. Increased defense capabilities. Obviously, you know, two armies working together are more powerful than two armies competing against each other. All right. Allies do not align with enemies, meaning you're typically not going to enter into some sort of alliance with someone that you distrust or someone that you just totally despise. Right? So alliances typically are forged by countries that somehow can get along, okay, are able to agree, or that are able to find some sort of agreement. Realists. Why would realists be apprehensive about alliances?
Because you only enter an alliance when you have to, because you have like your own interests.
Yeah, well, say that again?
You only enter an alliance because you need to, you have to.
Okay, but why would the realist or a neo-realist be critical of alliance?
Because they say that like it's against the idea of the ties that bind. They think the countries, they cannot possibly be truly like live together.
Okay, I see. Okay, so in other words, that's actually a very good point, and that is that the alliances, at least from a realist point of view, aren't plausible, right? Because the idea of an alliance is not exactly very meaningful, right? Because if you enter into an agreement, it's only for a temporary period of time. That's actually a very, very insightful point. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say just for a short time.
Okay.
To achieve what they want from them.
How would alliances increase aggressive behavior?
From a realist point of view?
Yeah.
They cause a panic by other countries, like let's say in a war, if two countries ally together, then another country is like scared because
All right. Well, Syria and Egypt, right? talked about that earlier. In other words, you know, Syria on its own may not feel comfortable taking on Israel, right? Or we're talking during the President Nixon period, right? Egypt may not feel comfortable taking on Israel, but together they are more comfortable taking on the country, right? So that when you become more powerful, okay, on one hand, you'll get more respect, but on the other hand, two sides of the same coin. You could become more bolder, right? You may decide, you know what, together we can take on our arch enemy, so to speak, and we can go to war. So it encourages, from what I'm trying to say here is realists would argue, okay, that it could encourage aggressive behavior. Whereas a country, when it's weaker, may not be as aggressive, but if it works, it enters into agreement with another country, it becomes more powerful, then it becomes more aggressive. Encourages provokes counter formation. If two countries form together and become more powerful, that forces what? A counter action, right? On the part of other countries who now have to come together to kind of neutralize the increase in power. Can draw other neutral states into this war, right? In other words, if everyone's forming alliances, everybody's choosing sides, ultimately everybody has to do what? Pick a side, right? United States versus the USSR. We lived in a bipolar world. You're either with the US or you're with the Soviet Union. Then you had some non-aligned states, of course, right? But pretty much people were kind of drawn in and they were forced to pick a side, okay? Another thing is that, and this is really a very interesting point that they make, is what do you think this means, must try to control the behavior of allies? What does that mean? Well, you've entered into an agreement, right? You agree to coordinate your behavior, which means you have to do what? Well, realists would argue that every country acts in its own self-interest, so that even if you enter into an agreement, you got to pay attention to what?
So what your allies are.
What they're doing, right? Well, that has a transaction cost. Now you have to kind of monitor what the other country's doing, right? Because the neo-realists would always argue, or realists would always argue, that there's always a Brutus in everyone's a Brutus. And tu Brute. You guys know what that means? Guys, you ever watch Julius Caesar? Who killed Julius Caesar? Brutus, right? His friend. Stabbed him. Okay? Guys, you guys never had Shakespeare in school? Guys don't know what you're missing. All right. And then you've already identified today's ally, maybe tomorrow's enemy. You guys, what was the first thing you guys pointed out? So that was good. Okay? Now, all right, some other examples of realist criticism of alliances. Reduce adaptability. Now, what does that mean, reduce adaptability? Come on, you got to think about this. Think about it critically. Well, what does that mean, reduce adaptability? How about use the word reduces flexibility? Back there, what does that mean, reduces flexibility? I'm sorry? You never answer the question, you got to kind of come up with something else. Reduces flexibility. Listen, guys, if I see you guys doing something else, I'm going to essentially ask them. I have no problems doing that. I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm trying to make you do what? Pay attention. Because if you don't pay attention, what's going to happen, folks? Huh?
You won't understand.
And if you don't understand, what's going to happen?
You're
Going to fail. And as nice guy as I am, guess what? I do give Fs.
Professor,
Yeah?
there's a movie. It's called Ides of March.
Yeah, Ides of March, sure.
It's really nice. It's because you were talking about Shakespeare,
Yeah.
Julius Caesar, and it's kind of based on Julius Caesar and how his friend backstabs him.
Yeah,
It's about-
backstabs him, very good, yes. The two Brigade got 7. We put on this play at AUB 2 years ago. You guys, you probably you weren't here too. This is a 101 class. You probably weren't here. Okay, I was even in it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's about politics, maybe you should go.
yeah, Ice and March. Yeah, I know, but
So good.
huh?
So
It's
good.
amazing.
George Clooney, isn't it? And so the other guy.
Ryan Gosling.
Okay, but I think you're watching the movie for the wrong reason.
No.
I mean, because Eyes of March, you're watching a guy who, a president who takes advantage of an intern.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I saw the movie,
he does.
but I didn't watch it because of George Clooney or what's the other guy's name?
Ryan Gosling.
Is he like the news guy on those magazines for you? I see. Sorry, guys. You know, maybe I should. No, my daughter's Justin Bieber. She was into Justin. I mean, though she's not into him anymore, but he's gotten too old for her. Anyway, as we were saying, reduces flexibility. No, behind you. I'm serious. I'm not going to let you slide. You got to pay attention. All right, someone else. You want to take it?
Yeah, you're incapable, you're rigid, like, you can't.
I love the rigid. Yes, rigidity. Yes. Okay.
You can't take, like, different stances or.
Why not?
directions Because, you're tied down by your alliance.
Guys, that's correct. That is 100% correct. When you enter into a line, you got to basically check to see what your teammate wants you to do, right? Remember when NATO was when they were deciding how NATO was going to deal with the Libyan situation, right? It took a long time, didn't it? Why? Because they had to get everybody who belonged to NATO had to agree on a plan to deal with the Libyan situation. Which means they had to get everybody to sign on. They couldn't just, one country couldn't decide, because it's a lot easier for one country to decide what it wants to do, because it basically just does it, right? It doesn't ask to talk to anyone else. Now, you'll have a government process in the case of the United States. If you want to declare war, you gotta get permission from Congress. Ultimately, you need to get funding from Congress. So you have these checks and balances, right? But it's a lot different, it's a lot more problematic, a lot more problematic, okay, if you're dealing with an alliance. And the bigger the alliance, the more problematic it becomes, the more rigid you become. I love that's a very good word. Provoke fears of adversaries, okay? All right, becomes fears of adversaries, okay? In other words, the fact that you have to form, it encourages counter groups or counter alliances. It does so because everybody now is getting paranoid. Everybody's looking at how powerful the other is, and with that, if they see this, NATO basically sent the message to Eastern Europe and to the Soviet Union that, hey, the West is not going to basically, stand idly by as you begin to place your missiles targeting the major cities in the Western world, right? So they essentially, and then the USSR in return said, okay, you form NATO, we form our version, okay? So, entangle states in disputes of allies. This is a big problem, right? Why is this a big problem? If you're in an alliance and someone picks on a person in your alliance, right? When Bahrain was having its problems, what did Kuwait do? It sent help, right? So basically what happens is that someone else's issue becomes everyone's issue. Because it's kind of like you have a brother and someone picks on you. What do your brothers do? They go and talk to the person picking on you, right? So don't pick on my sister or you're going to have to deal with me, right? Didn't that happen to you guys when you were in school? Didn't happen? Well, my boys have done that to protect their sister. But the point is, then you bring in the disputes or you bring others into your you get caught up in your business, okay? preserve existing rivalries, a bond can be, so, okay, so these are all. Now, how much time do we have? We have 4 minutes. Let me just stop here because I'll finish this off on Monday when we get back.